One of the reasons why I think that so many black women are seen as masculine is because when you have to play the man's role because there are no men in your household, so you're the one that has to put the man's shoes on and put the man's pants on. You're the one that has to clean the snow off the car. You're the one that has to cut the grass. You're the one that has to take the trash out. You're the one that has to pay all the bills. And you're the one that pretty much has to do the disciplining in the family if there's any kids in the household. And so when you're having to take on the male role because there are no males in your household, well, yeah, you're probably going to start to develop a sense of masculinity because you're being put in the masculine role. If someone comes to rob your home, you're going to be the one that has to stand up to the robbers. You're going to be the one that has to protect the rest of your family if, there's people that, if you have young kids in the house. So when you're put in these types of position, then yeah, you're going to develop a sense of masculinity throughout the years. So, you know, I think that could be why, you know, so many black women are seen as masculine because they have to play the woman's role and the man's role. Whereas these other races they don't have to go through that. A lot of them don't have to go through that. And in some cases, I have seen white women that have had to bring their kids up as single parents and have also had to take on the masculine role in the family. And a lot of them that do that also give off a masculine energy about them. They're not near as feminine as they would be if there was a man in the household because she's only playing the feminine role once a man gets into the equation. She only has to do what she's expected to do. In most cases, in desperate cases, she is still playing the man's role and the woman's role. If she is dating a black man in many cases or a white man that's out of prison, sometimes they just don't want to work. And so, again, a lot of the times I have noticed when white women are the ones paying the bills and bringing home the food, paying, the bills, they don't really seem near as feminine as women who are married, where the man takes on the roles that he's expected to take on. Okay, paying the bills, buying the food, and being the protector of the household. Okay, so I have noticed there are women in these other races that do, some of them are throw themselves off as very masculine, and some of them are actually bisexual and gay. Okay, they walk around. I guess they're part of the LGBT community, and they throw off a very masculine energy about them. Okay. And I've noticed a lot of them have grown up in single parenthood, single parent households where the mother had to play both the father role and the mother role. And then what happens sometimes is they push some of that responsibility off onto their daughters. So she might have to drop out of school and go get a job and start putting in money to so that the family can survive, especially in this day and age. And so in many cases, she can develop a sense of masculinity. Okay. I myself, I do tend to have a masculine feminine energy about me. Because there hasn't been a man in my household ever since I was divorced. That was over 20 years ago. So I tend to live with my sister, and we have a home, and our mother has recently come to live with us. Okay. So I'm the one pretty much that mostly will take out the trash, and um, I'm the one that a lot of the times I'll go shovel the snow. Um, I do pay a lot of the bills, okay, and so I'm not paying all of them, but I'm paying, a little over half right now. So in a sense, that does kind of put a masculine type of energy on me because so much is expected of me. And so when I'm having to mow the lawn, and do the manly chores around the house because I'm the one that's more dominant, I guess. My sister is the one that's kind of more feminine, so she does the cooking, mostly, the cleaning mostly. I put in more hours at work. So in a sense, I can kind of come off as a little more masculine than her. Okay. Do I want to be that way? Not. It's not a choice. It's just something that comes throughout the years when there are no male figures around. Okay. And I think this happens a lot in the black community because I chose not to have any kids if I wasn't going to be married. I was married at one time, but after a while we got a divorce. And I wasn't about to bring any kids into the world as a single parent. I made a promise to myself that I was never going to allow that to happen. Because for one, I wasn't going to put myself into that type of struggle. Number two, I didn't want to have to struggle like that. I didn't want to have to work 2 and 3 jobs, raising single kids when I'm at work all day. I don't know what's going on with my children. So I would have to pay. I kind of figured if I'm going to have to pay these daycares to watch my kids, they're practically raising them for me. And they might not raise them the way I want them raised. And so rather than going through all that trouble, I just opted not to have any kids. Because upon growing up, when I saw the tons of single parents within the black community, I made a promise to myself not to put myself into that hardship. I didn't want that for myself. I didn't want to have to work 2 and 3 jobs, struggling, getting on welfare and SNAP and all that type of stuff. I just did not want to have to go through that, because growing up, my mom really didn't have to struggle that much because she did get a lot of help from her parents. She was never one that ever took any type of help from the government. We never got on WIC or SNAP or EBT cards. We never did any of that. She was one that was way too proud to go to the government for any kind of help. She never went to the government for any kind of help. So really, she didn't have to, really, because she got a lot of help from her parents. For one, we lived with my grandparents for several years until I got around the age of 9. Then we moved out of my grandparents' house into our own home. And so we never really had to get help from the government for anything. It was all done by family members. My grandparents watched us. They fed us. My mom would give them money to help out with groceries. And so while my mom was working day and night, we had a babysitter. We had my grandmother that would watch us all the time. And she was a great grandparent along with my grandfather. And so both my grandmother and grandfather raised me and my sister, because my mom did work a lot. So she didn't really rear us as much. It was more or less my grandmother that did most of the rearing, bringing us up and disciplining us and looking over things, and I wouldn't trade that childhood really for anything, because I really loved my grandparents a lot. I couldn't have asked for better grandparents. I was very, very spoiled with my grandfather and my grandmother, really. So, and my sister, we were both pretty spoiled. So, I couldn't have asked for a better, really, upbringing. But regardless of my childhood, I still believe that if I was married, I would have made a very good wife to a black male, but never really had the opportunity to marry an American black male once I got divorced, because my husband was from Africa, the one that I married. So once we got divorced, I really never had the opportunity to marry an American male because they were so fucking racist, until I was just completely overlooked at, these guys, they would walk past you, speak to women outside the black community. They would act like you as a black woman did not exist. A lot of the times these black males were very rude. They wouldn't talk to you, would not hold conversations with you, and they still do that to this very day. I don't really have a whole lot of interactions with black males. And I kind of think that could be a spiritual thing, because although I do think my childhood upbringing did have a lot to do with that, because I wasn't really raised by my father, that might have a little bit to do with it. I have found that, like today, just when I'm at work, it's always white guys that will speak. Black men rarely ever speak to me. Sometimes they do, most of the time they don't. It's on very rare occasions. They almost act like I'm not even a part of the black community. So I kind of think that this goes back to my bloodline. This is what I personally really think. This goes back to my bloodline because with my father being a mixed race, multi generationally mixed, pretty much biracial male, he comes from two biracial parents who came from white men and black women, okay, on both sides, on his grandmother's side or on his mother's side and his father's side. His grandparents consisted of white men and black women, okay? So, in other words, my great grandparents were interracial couples. So my seed goes back to Europe, basically. I'm not really seeded by black men. I came from the egg of a black woman, and I kind of think that might have something to do with it. It's more, I kind of think it might be more spiritual. Somehow black men can tell that I'm not of them. That's kind of what I think. So there really are no black men really in my family. I don't really consider my father black. I consider him more mulatto or mixed race, because when you come from two biracial parents, well, then you're pretty much a biracial child. And so but I always saw him growing up as just a light-skinned black man. I didn't know the difference until I got older and started digging into my family history. And then that's when I found out that my father was actually basically biracial, because he comes from two biracial parents who came from white men and black women on both sides. His mother's mother or his grandmother was a black woman. His grandfather was a white man on his mother's side, and then on his father's side, his grandfather was a white man and his grandmother was a black woman. So on both sides, he is pretty much biracial. So when so the seed goes back to Europe, okay, because we were seeded by white men, birthed by black women, okay. So, as I got older, and even throughout my childhood, I noticed white guys would have more interaction with me, okay. They would speak to me more, interact with me more. They just never, some of them did throw off hints that they wanted to date me, but I think that they kind of knew better than that I just was not really interested in white men, not in that sense. I get along with them pretty well for the most part, but when it comes to dating them, the interest is just not there. And that is something that I have found seems to be very common with mixed race girls. They're typically not really interested in white guys. I just don't think the attraction is there. So most of the men that I was attracted to upon growing up were either Mexican men, and when I say Mexican, I am not talking about the Spaniard Mexicans. I am talking about the Aboriginal, darker-skinned Mexican men who looked and favored. They favor my grandfather. Okay. Um, I did, take an interest in some of those guys. And um, the boyfriends that I had after I got my divorce, about a year after I think a year or two after I was divorced, I started to date again. And the guys that gave me the time of day were from India or India based places. Like one guy I dated was from Pakistan, another was from Nepal, another of them was from India, and another of them was from Bangladesh. Okay. So Krishna, the sons of Krishna, were the ones that gave me the time of day. Okay. And the reason why I'm so attracted to them has a lot to do with their features and their melanated skin. So, and again, I think that they kind of more or less looked like uh, closer to my grandfather, because my grandfather kind of took the male role in my life. And so that might have something to do with why I was probably more or less attracted to East Indian looking men, because my grandfather could actually pass for an East Indian man. He looked kind of East Indian-ish looking, okay? And my grandmother was a black woman, so I think that might have to do with why my attention. I probably would have dated Aboriginal Mexican men, but I only had like one in my whole life ever take an interest in me. And we dated, but the only thing is that he could barely speak English. And so after a while, I just got tired of the language barrier between us, and I had to break it off because it just didn't work out. He couldn't really understand English, and I really couldn't understand Spanish, and it was just very hard to have a relationship with someone that can't really speak your language. Okay. I was going to try to teach him English, but I just didn't have time when I was expected to work a full time job as well. So that could have something to do with why uh, black men just don't approach me, never really have. I think it might have a lot to do with, besides the fact that so many of them are so very prejudiced and racist towards their own women. I just kind of believe that they can somehow sense that I don't belong to them. And, you know, it's weird because my husband was actually from Africa, the one that I actually married. And uh, I think one of the reasons why I was so attracted to him, because I was very much attracted to African men at one time. I'm not so much anymore. I actually am, but not like I used to be. Okay. But I think I was attracted to African men because they will acknowledge you 10 times faster than an American male will. They will give you the time of day 100 times faster than an American black male will. Um, and I'm not necessarily talking about black males that were born and raised in the East or the South. I'm talking about black males that were brought up and raised in the western part of the United States. They're just very, very racist. I have seen towards women of their own race. I have seen black females get up online and make videos talking about how uh, they can't even get a date in the state of California. And these are very nice looking black females. These aren't your average typical looking. These girls that I've seen got their hair laid, nails done, we're talking flight attendant looking type of women, just real sophisticated, slender, very up to fashion, very high quality type women that have made videos talking about how they've been passed up in these Western states because black men are pretty much brainwashed into dating and marrying and procreating with anything other than a black woman. Okay? And so I really do think that there is some type of magic being used or some type of extraterrestrial frequencies going on where I kind of feel like the minds of these black males that are in the western parts of the United States has been altered in some kind of way. Because when I was growing up, I don't remember black men being so hateful and rude and racist towards women of their own race. I don't remember them being like that at all. I started noticing a significant change in by the mid 1990s. That's when I started to notice a pretty significant change in the behaviors of black men that have been brought up and raised in the western parts of the United States. They became very unattentive to black women, very uninterested, very hateful, very rude, extremely racist. And now it's getting to a point, it's actually gotten so bad, it's gotten to a point where some of them have actually made videos talking about how they wanted to physically harm black women. I have seen a video where a black man was calling for the pretty much extermination of black females. And he was calling black men, talking about it's an order by God, and how black women have destroyed the black race, and how we all need to be KILLED, and how we need to be replaced by women of these other nations so that they can create a new race of people. So, upon hearing that video and upon experiencing the experience that I've been through with the complete ignoring of black females, seeing videos where black females have gotten up online and have talked about how they are ignored and passed up by black men, I have just lost total interest in a lot of them. I don't really consider a lot of them related to me anymore. I just don't see them as my people anymore. But I would still like to see the black race come together and save themselves. When I get around black men who care about black women and they talk to black women and they're attentive, then I see them in a whole different light. But those types are rare to come across. They're very, very rare. But every now and then you'll see them where they'll actually come and sit with you. They'll talk with you. But then I've had cases where somehow it gets shut off and they no longer talk to you anymore. They shun you. Kind of like, it's just weird how people are shunned. How they just shun you for no particular reason. I've had stuff like, and you've never had a disagreement before, you've never had an argument before, and they just suddenly just disassociate themselves with you. It's just weird. And I'm not saying all of them do it. I'm just saying I've in a couple of 2 or 3 cases I've seen that with them. They'll talk to you, and all of a sudden they just it's almost like some type of switch has been shut off. And I'm almost beginning to wonder if there's some type of extraterrestrial involvement happening. And I know this sounds very far-fetched, but it's just some of the behavior of a lot of black men is very, very strange to me. It's almost like they're being manipulated by some unseen hand, some unseen force. Almost like there's a frequency that's being sent out into the atmosphere that shuts them off from women of their own race, and tries to pull them towards another race of women. And I'm beginning to wonder if these women are actually human, or if they're from another planet trying to breed with our men because they don't have melanin, and so they need to produce an offspring that is melanated so that offspring will be able to survive on this planet, because the planet is heating up and you need melanin in order to survive. And I know, again, that sounds very far-fetched to a lot of you, but there's a lot of extraterrestrial activity that's going on the planet right now. And some of you know about this. Some of you are very skeptical about this sort of thing. You don't believe it unless you actually come into contact with something that you've never seen before. But I'll tell you what, I've seen a real UFO before. And of course, I have already gotten online, and I have already told this incident about what happened with me. This was about, I would say, almost close to 20 years ago. I was driving down on this main street, and as I got onto the highway and drove all the way down, and then I got off onto this exit. As I took the exit, and as I merged off onto this other road, and I ended up on another road, and it was a very populated road with a lot of traffic on it. I was pulling up to an intersection, and at the intersection, in broad daylight, I saw a jellyfish-looking type of cryptid entity hovering over the intersection in our skies. And this thing was huge. I was so shocked at what I saw, because I saw it right through my window of my car. I'm looking through the main window, and I'm seeing this thing hovering over the intersection. It looks like a very clear, transparent looking cryptid jellyfish, and it was huge. And so I got out of the car, and I looked at the car next to me, and I told the guy in the car, I said, look at this, look. And he looked up, and I said, do you see it? And he said, see what? And I said, this right here. And I pointed at it, and I said, look, it looks like a jellyfish. And he said, I don't see it. And I said, look, it's right here, look. And he said, I'm looking and I don't see it. So then when I said, okay, look up, and he looked up and he said, I'm not seeing it. So then the light turned green. I get back into my car. I had to pull off of the road. By the time I looked into my, as I was pulling off the road, and I looked into my rear view mirror, the thing had vanished. I was so shooken up, I had to park in the Blockbuster parking lot, because actually that's where I was going. I was going to Blockbuster at that time to return a movie back in those days. And I had to just sit there for 30 minutes and catch my breath and get it all together, because I knew I had just witnessed an extraterrestrial craft. Okay, I don't know if this was, I know what I saw was real. For some reason, this guy, he was a white guy, that was next to my car in his car, for some reason, he couldn't see it. There was a car behind me. I don't know if he saw it or not. I didn't look. But I know I was trying to get the car next to me to see. He was to see it. He was trying very hard to see what I saw, and he couldn't see it. I was not on drugs. I don't do drugs. I have never done drugs. I was not high on anything. I did not drink anything before I left, so I was not drunk. I didn't even eat anything. I might have gotten a cup of coffee. I got up out of bed, drank a cup of coffee, maybe some juice, maybe had some toast, and took my video down to Blockbuster to get it turned in before I would be charged a late fee. And I saw this thing. Now, the thing of it is that there's no way that this thing was of this world. It was like a see-through, transparent looking jellyfish, and it was just hovering over the intersection, over the lights at the intersection. It was just hovering, and it looked like these fluorescent looking transparent lights was going through it, like blue, red, pink, streaks of pink and yellow, and it was very big, but it did not, it looked almost like water, but shaped into the shape of a jellyfish. And it was transparent, and lights were flashing through it, and this was in broad daylight. So nothing, after seeing that, nothing about this extraterrestrial stuff surprises me. I after seeing and witnessing what I saw, I don't sit here and tell people that whatever they experienced, seeing a UFO in the sky, or if they've seen something weird, I don't ever secondhand question these people, okay? Because after what I saw, now I know that this stuff really does exist. Okay, it has changed my life. I have never been the same since, because now I know there is something going on in this world that we are not aware of. This thing looked like a live, it looked like a live creature. Okay, it looked like a live jellyfish that may have not have been in this lifetime. It looked like it might have appeared from another realm. Okay, it looked like it might have come through a portal or something, maybe transported here, and I just happened to see it because maybe I was standing at a certain angle or something. I don't know why I saw it and why the guy next to me did not see it. I don't understand that. I know what I saw was real, and I've never been the same since. Okay, and so it would not surprise me if there is some type of frequency that can be turned off or turned on, and it only affects black men. Maybe it's extraterrestrial created, and maybe black men are being affected by some type of frequency that they don't have any control of. Because it's kind of odd to me how an entire race of men in one part of the United States turns against their women overnight, almost overnight. And suddenly they no longer acknowledge you anymore. They don't like you. They're almost like white supremacists. They're almost that bad. And they see anything in their image as the enemy. To me, that's almost as unnatural as seeing a UFO. To me, there's something very unnatural about that. So I don't know if there's some type of extraterrestrial involvement here where there's frequencies being turned on or turned off that could affect the moods of people. But I know that extraterrestrials have been known to come to Earth working with our government, and they're here for a reason. I've watched shows on Gaia that have said that these things are coming to the planet to breed with our human race. And I know that the sun is heating up. Okay, the planet is turning hotter, and some of these beings might be coming down here breeding with black men, and somehow they've shut off their frequency to be attracted to their own women. Okay, that is something that I've thought about, because again, to me it's very strange how an entire section of the United States, how they suddenly just overnight just turn against their women, and none of them seem to like them. None of them will date them. None of them will breed with them. They act like they're the enemy, and this is something that you're born, that you come from, and this is your own bloodline. There's something very strange to me about that. And it's only black men that are affected. And then again, when we watch these commercials, they only focus on black men, and they really, really emphasize black men being with white women. And it's just black men, and it's just white women. So I kind of feel like this is being manipulated. That's what I'm trying to say. I kind of feel like there's a lot of manipulation going on here. I think that there's, black men are not aware of this. I think that maybe there is some extraterrestrial involvement with all of this. Okay. And so in a way, I kind of think that unless black women leave the United States, I kind of feel like there's no way to really get out of this unless you leave. The only way I feel that black women are going to be able to have kids that look like them if they want them would probably be to leave the United States and go somewhere like Africa, or some other area where there's a lot of black people, maybe Brazil. I am very open to Brazil. I could actually see myself living in Brazil, perhaps, rather than speaking Portuguese. I kind of wish they spoke Spanish, because I'm a little more fluent in Spanish rather than Portuguese. I'm not actually fluent, but I can understand a lot more. Spanish than I can Portuguese. So that's the only downfall I would have with Brazil. But I think that Brazil, Portuguese is probably very similar to Spanish, so I probably wouldn't have a hard time picking up Portuguese and and speaking it. So uh, because we don't really know what's going to happen as long as these Republicans are in office and the GOP is running things. It's very, very hard to say what type of future lies ahead, especially for black women. This is going to be a very, very tough obstacle to complete as a single woman. And so I kind of feel like if you have daughters, if you're a black woman and you have daughters, it's probably within your best interests would be to probably move to areas where there's a very high population of black people. Okay, we're talking Africa, Brazil, places where the population is of black people is at least at 50% or higher. Okay, so but that's pretty much, I think, all I'm going to say on this video. But hopefully there's people out there that can kind of relate to what I'm saying, because this is very, very real. I have seen and witnessed this anti-black female energy from a lot of black men in the black community. It has affected my interest in having kids, because I could have been a single parent, but I just didn't want to, because I just didn't see no reason to bring a black man's kids into this world when they don't seem to like black women. So, but with my, I am interested, or was at least at one time interested in African men. I'm not really around a lot of them like I used to be. I would work in places where there were a lot of them that were in my age group, and but even now, it seems like even when the African men come here, they don't really have the same energy that they did back in the mid 90s and the early 1990s. They just don't seem to have the same interest. It's just strange, like there's some type of manipulation going on. So again, for black women, I think it would be in the best interest, if you want children and if you want to be married, if you are in your 20s or 30s or even 40s, I think it would be in your best interest to get out of the United States. I really do. And I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to end this here. Hopefully there are some of you out there that can relate to what I'm saying and understand what I'm saying. And if you can, go ahead and leave comments. Some of this might be a little far-fetched for some of you out there, but then there's others out there that have been listening to me for several years. And so you kind of know that this conversation is right up my alley and my path of topics that I typically talk about. But I'm going to leave it at that, and hopefully you guys will be able to understand what I'm saying in this video. And I will talk to you guys later in another video. And thanks so much for listening. Have a good night.